All right. So, as an internee, again, I think this is probably the other part that I was alluding to. You've got you know hundreds of candidates looking for internships every single year or every few months. It's important to stand out. Now, how do you stand out? One is having you know having good good results in in your courses, for example, is one way. But being active and you know having a way to let the recruitment teams know that you can almost hit the ground running. We've had in my experiences, we've had internees who, when you interview them, barely know how to type in some terminal commands, for example. Right. And by that, I don't mean that people need to absolutely memorize some of these commands. That's not what I mean. But you kind of get the gist of people when you talk to them, and see how passionate they are about this the career they have chosen for themselves. And the only way to tell them about, to assess that passion, first up, is to see what they do in their free time. In their free time, obviously, we play games, we go out with family and whatnot. We've got our own separate life to live by. But how many, for example, open source projects have you taken part in? It obviously doesn't give you any monetary benefit, but when you go into open source projects and you can list them out on your resume, that adds a lot of value. Things like how active are you on GitHub, for example? How much activity can you show there? How many tools you have created, for example? How many I don't know how many. Again, it's just about the level of activity that you've got outside of your actual course outline that you've gone through. And that's what you want to, when you actually put your resume in front of anyone else. That's what people are going to look for, rather than, hey, I've just completed my master's degree or my undergrad degree, and I've completed these many courses. That doesn't matter, because a lot of people actually do that, right? How do you stand out? Hey, if you compare that with someone who's completed their degrees or are in the process of completing their degree, and they've got tens of open source projects they've gone through, and you can have a meaningful conversation with them around technology, around architecture, for example. That enhances your chances of landing an internship many folds. Now, I think one question that I can probably preempt is, how do companies actually offer internships, right? I think there's a lot of there are a lot of companies um, that advertise those internships, but there are a lot of companies who actually don't know how to go about that process as well, and I've seen that happen. And at times, what happens is, as a hiring manager, when we always have to deal with this headcount issue. Companies have a limited budget; they probably don't want to have an additional headcount, because then letting people go comes with its own set of legalities and whatnot. So hiring an internee for tasks that are simpler, and they can be done by people who have just who understand the basics, is a bit of a no-brainer. But companies don't actually um, explore those options until you proactively reach out to them and ask them, hey, have you got an opportunity for an internee? So I'll encourage everyone to, again, this in this instance, spam companies reach out to their HR departments and see if they've got any internship opportunities. And I think being proactive, being biased for action here is another signal that companies can potentially see as a positive factor, that you're doing your due diligence and reaching out to them, instead of um, waiting for an opportunity to come on your table.
And you think reaching out to the HR departments is the best way to go about it?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely one way of doing it. Others is obviously there. A lot of the companies. I don't know if Amazon actually does this in Australia. We've done this in the past 2 3 years, but we've recently had a hiring freeze. So I know there's a lot of activity, school and college activity happening in the US side of things, where they've advertised for internees, and a lot of internees have come through, and then they go on to become permanent members of the team when they finish up their courses. So the bigger companies would all the time advertise for these opportunities, because we always take into account the head count plus how much of the work can be done by hiring attorneys, and how much we can actually give back to the industry as well. It's the smaller companies that don't do that proactively, unless actually someone actually pings them and says, they'll kind of then get the sense that, all right, we can actually hire someone and help them grow and be useful for us in the future.